Myself quickly. My name is Max. I'm a customer success associate and 1C developer for Rise. I'll also be your facilitator for today. Joining me is Nabeweya and Debbie. They are working for South Peninsula High School, who have been partnered up with Rise since 2020. They've been using our system. For the duration of the call, I do ask that you keep your microphone muted and keep your webcam off. Should you have any questions, I will open the floor later on in the call for you to ask your questions, and you can also post them in the chat during the call, after which I'll get to them at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Nabeweya and Debbie.
Good morning, everybody. We came to know about the Rise through an acquaintance that works at another school, and she mentioned this accounting package that we can populate the 043, which really sparked my interest, you know, and unfortunately at the time we could not be part of the forums that Rise was running and that was offered at the time, but we were very fortunate to meet privately with Anna and the team and to be enlightened about the package, you know, of what Rise can do and so on, and the deputy and our techno-boffins at the school we were all with, so they could pose questions to Anna. So after all the protocols, our journey, you know, started with Rise around about the 27th of March 2020, and I think that was the first day of lockdown. And the training via Zoom was quite a learning experience, but uppermost in my mind was the fact of getting the 043 done at the push of a button. And my ex-colleague and I, Leslie, we concentrated, you know, on capturing, she concentrated on capturing the school fee payments, and I would do all the creditors payments, etc. And I must mention here too that Anna and Natasha were really helpful in the training, you know. You get to know what the package can do by exploring your way around. And if you're not sure about anything, you just note your questions and address it with them in training sessions. And then once your work is captured to the various line items, the 043, you know, then really becomes a breeze then. And one thing I also liked about the package is, you know, if, I like the fact that if I've forgotten where to post an entry to, I would just go into the counterparties, who are the learners and the suppliers and creditors that you've saved in the system. You just go into their profile and you click on the document journal and you can drill down from there. So basically a really, you know, user-friendly package. There's so much that you can derive, the benefits that you can derive from being on this package. And in the words of my ex-colleague as well, she would say generally a one-stop shop. And I'm still learning as I go along. And with our new colleague here now, she's also come on board and also kind of steamrolled her way through the system and really exploring also more of the benefits that you can derive from using Rise as a package. Yeah, and that's been our journey and still ongoing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Debbie. Appreciate it. Now I'm going to move on to Nabeweya, who's going to go over a few more aspects within the Rise system. Thank you, Nabeweya.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nabeweya English. I've only been with SP for about 2.5 months. I've got a financial background, so I'm used to working in accounting software, and that made it easier for me to navigate on the Rise. So what I've done is exploring the package was very easy. I must say Rise is very user-friendly, and particularly in the school environment because of the features that it offers. So I've got a list of topics that we want to discuss a little further just to show you what the potential of the software is. So we'll start off by discussing the submission of the 043, which to me, with an accounting background, is basically an income statement, but it's in the format that the education department wants it. So if we look at the 043 on RISE, the report is found under the school module. You'll see it on the right-hand side under reports where it says WCED 043. So if you go into that reports, we submitted our June, which was our first semester report. And you can either do it by semester or by quarter, however your financial year is set up, or your submission periods. And what I found very nice about RISE is sometimes with certain expenses, the education department requires line by line detail, like sort of a detailed ledger of that particular account. And when you double click on a line item like that, you can select your dates over here, from which period to begin and end, and it will populate the report for you. Then you can even further drill down onto the line item and open that specific payments, because what we do is sometimes we put notes in our memo tab as to what it is. So this is how the description would have referenced on our bank statement. So if we need for our own reference, or just for recall purposes, we put notes in the memo part. So then you would close this, because this was now just me opening the payment for detail, for information purposes, and this you can print and attach to your 043. Sometimes they even ask for originating documents like your invoices from your service providers or suppliers, and we attach that as well. And checking the 043 itself, so basically these are populated from all your GL accounts, and this is all in the setup of your GL accounts. So when you set up the account, it's linked to your 043, and it automatically, it's not just in your ledger or your trial balance, it's also on your 043 in the format requested. And at the bottom here, we will have our bank recon, which will obviously have to balance to your bank statement balance for the period you are working on. And we, for our purposes, we use cash receipts and petty cash. The rest we don't use, but these are also usable. And it's all got to do with your actual cash flow. I've discussed this with Anna. We could previously type in the people's names and dates here, the chairperson normally of the governing body, and then we just give it to them with the supporting documents for checking and signatures. So another interesting thing that happened to us last month was we needed to create an additional line item for the education department. So the GL account was created, but it was not linked to the 043. So it did this tab here that says check accounts. If there's any errors or any problems with your 043, this comes up red. The actual text comes up red. And if you double click on it, it will tell you exactly which account and which value is creating the problem. So it makes it a lot easier to resolve it. So you don't have to go through everything. So it isolates the problem for you. So that basically is your 043 in populating it, and also for troubleshooting purposes. So from a debt collection purposes, the nice part, again, I will say, is that everything in your reports is basically a link. Moving on to the debt collection part of RISE, also very interesting, everything is linked. And the fact that you can, as you can see, I've got quite a few tabs open on top here. You can open multiple things at the same time for referencing purposes. So for the AR aging report, let's say, for instance, you are asked to do sorry, I'm just gonna go a step back. For the, if somebody asks you for a full history on a certain learner, which was very useful to me in handing people over. So because what they request is obviously full details, parents' contact details, ID numbers, etc., for tracing purposes, and full balance with history. So if you go onto sales, there's two ways you can run the report. You can do it via sales or you can do it via reports. If you go through sales, it's on the right-hand side of the screen. It's called AR aging. Apologies, my dog is getting a little bit uptight outside. So you go through your click on AR aging, and then you can either customize your period or select your date. So if we just go to the custom period that ends in, so this will be as at today, as at right now. And from here, you can do it per grade by just ticking off the grade box, and then you select your grade. So if I go, let's say grade 11, and we run this report, it will generate the report for only grade 11 students. If I wanted for the entire school, I just untick grade and rerun the report, and it will refresh it and it will bring up the entire school. And it's generally very quick, as you can see. So what you have here is your opening balance when we transferred from our previous software to RISE with the invoices as it was produced. And if there were any payments, the payments will also reflect in here. So like there, for instance, there you can see the payment under Abdurrahman Mahira. So there you can see the payments. Then, as I said previously, everything is a link. I want to see that invoice. I can just double click on that invoice and it will bring up the invoice, and I can see it's 2021 school fees that was sitting there. And I can just continue opening multiple tabs as I go for further information, as I want to see them. So I'm going to close this invoice, and then also great feature on here under the setup. If you go to your field and sortings, you can drag, remove items. If you only want to see current, you can unselect the rest of the aging, and you just want by total, and then you close and generate, and it will then refresh the report, rerun it, and it will remove all the other agings, and it will only have current and total on there. So with these options in your AR agings, it's actually quite beneficial in terms of being able to go back to your source documents and the detail that it gives you per line item, with your, including everything, your payments and invoices per line. So you get full detail. What I do with this report is I export this to Excel. You see it's got groupings on the side here. I can then, if I only want to see the balance per child, I can select it in the setup. Alternatively, I can do it by just removing my groupings or filtering it in a way that I will need to use the data at the time. So if I want a, just a top view, I would close all my groupings and I isolate the problem accounts in that way. And then before I go through the entire age analysis. So it makes my follow-up on collections a bit easier. So I address the problems first. So that is basically how I utilize the age analysis. And I also, depending on what period of the month you're on, if you're running statements or not, or if you're doing actual calling for collections, or you emailing, or you sending out notices. So I isolate the children from here, then I've got a short list, and then it makes the communication a lot faster. So it saves you a lot of time. Okay, so that is basically how we use the age analysis. And like I said, you find it in two modules, under reports and under sales as well. I've also asked Anna if we could perhaps look into these few more details that would be helpful to have on the report, like for instance, where the child's name is, to have the grade perhaps, if you're running a full age analysis. So we're looking into that as well, because right now it's in alphabetical order for the entire school. So we're looking into trying to customize that. although you already have the opportunity to select per grade, but then you can't have the entire school on one report, and you've got to run each grade separately. We wanted to look at, the other thing we wanted to look at was basically the budget. So if you are requested by one of your HRDs or the principal on a budget analysis on a specific expense, we would find that under accounting, and then you go to your budget actual plan. So like all the other reports, I'm going to say I want to view the budget for this year, run the report, and the report will populate. What I also liked about this is the way you can view it. So you can do it for days, months, per quarter. You can do weeks and years. Requests could be time sensitive. Maybe he's got a SGB meeting for this month and he just wants to see a particular month. Or he just wants to see how he's doing for that particular month. So I would change the date here as well, and we'll say, let's just do September. And we will run the report again. And regenerating the report, I must admit, it's very quick. So there it will show you what your actual spend was or income, what your budget was, and whether you over under budget. So this way, the principal or whoever is doing the financial reporting in the meeting, it makes it easy for them to say how the school is tracking year to date, and for them to, for decision-making purposes or strategies moving forward for the rest of the year. So like I said, this is, I really like the way, the options that is available here, because you can go for quarters, months, year, day, however you want to see it. So on this report, as all the other reports, if you want to see a breakdown on a line item, the principal just wants to know about maintenance perhaps, or stationery. So you just double click on stationery, you select transactions and select, and it's busy populating the detail of the expenses. So you would obviously use custom references for your school. So on here, like we, for instance, we would use PC for petty cash. So I know that would come from petty cash. If I open it up on the payment, again, we try to use our memo section a lot. And it tells you exactly what it was spent on. And we put it in the notes. So if you're running a report, you can see it in the notes on the report because you can add that. But if you want to just go view that specific item, or there is one standout item that you need an explanation on, like let's say that one, for instance, because it's a huge value, you can go in there and see, and then you know who that service provider is. And then in your memo, you can actually put more detail in here, and you can say it was 450 boxes of paper, let's call it that. And you can even detail it down and say 30 A4 boxes and 10 A5 boxes. So basically at the click of a button, you can give them right down to supplier detail, transaction date, value, what was purchased and why. You can put your why in your notes as well, because sometimes the why is required. So the budget, like all the other reports, the drill down effect is down to the origination of the transaction. You can put everything in there. Then we've got student lists, very useful, not just for teachers, for coaches, for sporting, for donations, for fundraising, for a lot of things. So on your quick menu, it should appear on the right side at the bottom of your screen. But if you go through school, the school module, and you go into students, this is our main view on students. I normally use a surname, but you can use full name, surname to search on. And then I select the student that I'm looking for. If you have the grade, you can pop that in there. If you've got the gender, you can pop that in there. But I just go by surname because it populates so fast. Then you double click to select the student you want to work with. And then on your main screen is all the details of the child: SEMAS numbers, grade, gender, parents' contact details, email addresses, everything you need for contact purposes. On the notes, as you can see there, all communication is captured on the notes. So if this learner pops up on my age analysis with a huge balance again, I would open the counterparties and go check the notes and see what the last action was, and then follow up from there. Because sometimes there's other explanation in, like, applied for exemption, and you know that's pending. Then you just, whether or not you have it back, you'll just update that notes and say documents still outstanding or awaiting approval. So the next person that looks at that learner knows exactly why the balance is what it is at that point. For transaction history on that learner, if you go into document journal on top here, it gives you the whole history from when this learner originated at the school. So you've got all your transactions. So this would be your original registration fee. Then the actual invoice that was created for that year, and the balance that's left. And every single transaction statement that was produced, which is great, because every time you produce a statement, it records that a statement was produced. And it will tell you also if it was emailed or not under statements. But here you can see that several statements have been produced for submission to these parents. You can open, like everywhere else, everything that's in here. So you just double click on the invoice and it will pop up, and you can view, see if there was any notes made, if there's any further comments, what year it was invoiced for. So working with the student counterparties is very useful. The other option that I asked Anna for here is sometimes the collection agencies want a full document history like this that shows you all the payments, all the communication that was done via the accounting software. We're going to find a way to print this, because generally they want full information, document history, or other comms that was made with the parents. And then we're going to try and print this, because the statement shows you opening balance, current year, and payments. But if they want full document or transaction history for a learner, you would find that under the document journal. And as I said, you can open anything from here. You can update children's information from here, parents' information. Sometimes when you phone someone, the email address changes. You just pop in there and you change it, and it's very, very useful. But this document journal is your full history, your full transaction history for a learner. The last thing we're going to address is our school list. This also is found under school students in the same place we were now, which is your counterparties. So at the top, here's a few tabs here. Teacher asks you for a class list. You go into class list report. Under class list report, you can do it for a particular class. So you select the class that you want to see, and then under setup, and from there you can customize this report. So if you go to setup and you go to fields and sortings, you can then add what the teacher requires. Sometimes it's just the SEMAS number. Sometimes the teacher wants the birth date, depending on what the intended purpose is, the gender. We can add the address fields or remove whatever it is that is available to us in this left column. Then you close and generate the report. And it will give you the full class, SEMAS number, date of birth, and gender. Some teachers want to use it for attendance, some for donations, some for fundraising, like I said. But in setup, you can select and customize it for the purpose it's intended. For myself also, what I do is I then export it to Excel. I like to give things a heading and what for and that sort of thing. And I'd like to be able to save it. So I then export it and I work with it from there. So that in a nutshell is basically what I found thus far on what the system can and cannot offer. And my next project will be the other modules, like purchases and also the accounting one, because the opening up the ledger accounts and things like that. But so far, I found it very interesting, very useful, very user-friendly. And the fact that they can build on your requests is also particularly useful. So that is me in a nutshell from the AR and 043 perspectives and budgeting. Okay, but in the meantime, thank you, Max and Anna, for the opportunity. And it's been great trying to navigate your software. It's really user-friendly and very, very helpful to the school environment.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I will just go over a few more sections within the RISE system. So you can just hold on for that. Okay, so this is basically the homepage of the RISE system. So on the homepage of the RISE system, you'll be able to have quick access to your school communicator statistics, which we have built into the system. So like a normal school, you may be sending out letters or have a D6 communicator. We have one that's built in onto the RISE system that you can make use of. You can send out news articles, resources, as well as add any events, track marks, attendance, and statements or income statements, so that parents can actually view how much they owe on the student's account or how much they have paid off. You can also open up the bank side, and we have integrated with 4 major banks throughout South Africa to enable the bank stream. So what the bank stream does is it will have your actual bank balance present in the RISE system so that you can have quick access to that. From here, you can select transactions, and then you can select whether you would like to approve or exclude transactions. You'll also have access to your ledger balance. So your ledger balance will be the same as your bank balance, but instead of being based on actual cash that's in your bank, it'll be based on statements. If we open up the school section, this is where we can see our school communicator. So if we'd like to send out a news article, we'll click on news. And then from here, you can create your news article by adding a title, body of text, as well as attaching a PDF file. You'll have your mobile preview on the right-hand side, from which once you select post, you'll actually be able to send this through to parents that have downloaded and registered on the RISE communicator. All right, perfect. All right, so just a few more points on the RISE system. It's a fully cloud-based system that can be accessed from anywhere at any time within a device that has an Internet Explorer, and all you just need is an internet connection. You have ongoing upskillment and support from the RISE team. So we have WhatsApp groups that we set up for each school, whereby if you have a quick query, you can just ask it on the WhatsApp group. And we have employees that are online 24/7. We're also the first system to automate the 043 form report, which is what Nabeweya went through, and it is accepted by the WCED. We can also increase your school fee collection each year because our school communicator actually sends out or has a live view of the student's account, so parents can see if they owe any money on their account or if it has been paid off. And due to us having an inbuilt communicator, as well as not requiring any physical documents, you can save a minimum of 20,000 Rand per year on paper. So that's it from us today. Thank you so much for joining us for the school forum. I do ask, if you are interested in the system, you do leave your email in the chat, after which I'll just send you an invite whereby we can have a demo and a more in-depth view in the system. And if you have any further questions, you may ask it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and I or Nabeweya will answer it for you. Thank you, everybody.